Hey everybody, this is Ziggy Alberts and you're listening to the Nebula Music Podcast.
Hey, what's up, everybody? This is Eddie Barco with the Nebula Music Podcast, and I just want to welcome you if this is your first time checking us out. This is a show where we talk to some of today's most inspiring, coolest, notable, anyone who's doing something really, really cool in the music industry. We have them on the show to pick their brain just for a couple of minutes, and today I am honored. I am super honored because I have somebody who is incredibly talented, who's done so much in such a short amount of time. He's incredibly young, younger than me, and so I'm really hoping that I get a chance to learn something from this individual today, and I'm hoping you can get a chance to learn something today as well. I have Mr. Ziggy Alberts joining me for an amazing conversation. Ziggy, how are you?
Eddie, better now. Now we're here having this chat. It's a beautiful morning here on the East Coast, and you guys might be evening West Coast or no?
Yes, sir. Actually, no. This is technically afternoon. It is about 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock or so where we're at. And I am calling you. You're in Australia right now, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm in Queensland on the East Coast. Yeah, so we have a city near us called Brisbane, if anyone's familiar with it. But yeah, we're here and it's beautiful and warm, and hoping that, you know, if we have enough of it, we would happily send some over your guys' way. But it looks like you're getting a bit of sunshine too as well.
We are getting just a tiny bit. You know, what's interesting is the U.S. just experienced one of the coldest winters it ever before. I think the last time we had something like this was like maybe 100 years ago or something like that. So there was a lot of places that were just, they did not expect it, you know. Here in California where I'm at, it got a lot colder, but not like the rest of the world. So we're definitely counting our blessings here, and you guys are definitely getting a nice bit of sunshine. If I can ask you, I've been asking this to everybody that's been on the show. I know that what we've been hearing here in the U.S., I don't know if it's true, but you live there, so I want to make sure it is true. We've heard that, like, in terms of the music industry, things seem to be almost 100% open. There's been some shows that we've been hearing about that's been going on in Australia. Walk me through a little bit how everything is going on in terms of like the pandemic. Are musicians a lot better now? How is that whole environment? Because over here, things are better, but it's still pretty much the same of how it's been the past year. So I'm just curious how you guys have been doing it.
Yeah, no, I think it's a really good question. So over here, I think much like the States is much like the States, each of our states, like Queensland, New South Wales, Victoria, everyone has they're almost operating like separate countries, to be really honest, as far as when it comes to music. Particularly with music, if you're talking about music and public gatherings. So, for example, here where I'm at in Queensland, like I think all the shows are still happening. I think they probably still got probably like half capacity rules. Don't quote me on that. But then I saw a picture last night from Adelaide of a colleague, Tash Sultana, who was playing to 5,000 people in Adelaide last night. So even within our country, it's so like 1 week the shows are cancelled and 1 week they aren't, kind of thing. So I'd say the successful shows that are happening a lot are shows kind of like 100, 200, certainly under 500 capacity shows are happening a lot with various restrictions. But as far as things back to normal here, not at the moment. As far as I've also heard the same thing in regards to another podcast that I did, and I would say our festival, we have one festival coming up that I'm supposed to play. It's called Blues Fest, and that looks like it will be going ahead. But frankly, the current state of play is that the government could shut it down any time. So, being really, really honest, from my experience, I kind of feel like we're in a similar boat to you guys, where music is happening, but it's kind of not. And certainly our industry has been absolutely slammed. We've been lucky, like our independent record label here, like we've been lucky, we've been busy with this new record and stuff that I'm sure we'll get talking about. But as far as live shows, I'll go back and play my first live show in like 14 or 15 months, because big capacity shows you just can't put on, kind of thing. Yeah. So it is like cowboy land as far as like, I know there has been some shows that have gone ahead that were 6,000 people. and then shows that have been cancelled that were 200 people. So it's all over the place for us here.
Yeah.
The further north you go, as far as like you'll have to get your head around this. But for example, North Queensland, I think North Queensland has been largely unaffected. And what I mean is like, because it's so warm up there, so incredibly warm all year round, I believe they've been doing their festivals and everything. And then I've also heard the same thing about WA, because they just shut their borders kind of thing. The West Australia borders just all got shut, and they have had festivals. So we are like, yeah, as I said, it's anyone's guess.
Wow.
Is the feeling, to be really honest, on the ground here, is that it's anybody's guess about what does and doesn't go ahead. Is it the same for you guys?
Yeah, I think the way you described it is pretty much on the money. I think here in the United States, I wouldn't say that every single state operates or feels like it's a different country. I do feel like you've been here plenty of times, right? I think you toured before the pandemic hit, right? And what you notice here in the States is that there are certain sections that behave very differently. So when people refer to like the West Coast, they think of California primarily, even though there's a lot more than that. And when people think of the South, they think of the stereotypical like country person, even though there's like 20 different states that all operate independently. So I guess yes and no. The answer is yes and no. There are certain areas in the United States that think alike, and there are others that think very differently. I would say the consensus here from what I've seen, and again, I'm in Los Angeles, so I'm in my own little bubble here, but I do feel the angst. I would say that there is this bit of angst amongst not just creatives, not just musicians, but I would say amongst just everybody else. I feel like, this whole entire time period has really tested everybody. Whether you had a good time with it or not, I feel like everyone's kind of definitely been with themselves a lot longer than normal, if you know what I mean. And actually, that's one thing I'm curious about as we kind of dive into your album and creativity and all of that. One of the things that I have found fascinating about this time period is how differently everyone has handled it within themselves. Because I do find that when you're a creative person like yourself who makes music and is very good at it, time away from the busyness of it all could be beneficial, but to some people it could also be non-beneficial, especially when you're kind of forced to be at home for good reason. I'm wondering for you, this time period, do you feel like it was good for your creativity? Do you feel like you struggled sometimes? I don't know, because literally everyone has had vastly different experiences. So I'm curious what yours was like.
So, yeah, I think you put it well that these times like will affect everybody differently, particularly if you want to nail it down to creative kind of endeavors as well, all of them. But specifically, I'd say my creativity has been totally busier than ever. I'd say that everything that's happened is given so much content and so much contemplation. And so I'd say creativity wise, it certainly hasn't suffered. I've been really, where I was busy with touring, I've become busy with writing. I know we released a poetry book about a month ago, I think already. Released a poetry book. We, opened up under our new publishing house alongside our record label. I worked on about 40 tracks last year, as far as like I worked on the new album. Yeah. And the new album, a live album, what else? And, collaborative EP, a studio acoustic album. Like, it literally worked on so many tracks. I was genuinely pretty busy with it. So in that sense, I'd say my personal experience was that my creativity didn't suffer at all. I'd say because it gave so many new things to write about. The whole year gave me so many new things to write about. And just because I'm typically a bit of a busy person, as far as there's I guess would be like this, laid back singer songwriter kind of thing, and that's certainly part of who I am. But I'm also like a busybody, and so as soon as the touring stopped, I started the new album. And when I'm not working on the new album, I'm working on new songs, and when I'm not working on new songs, I'm working on the poetry book stuff. And so as far as I was pretty damn busy through it all, which is so lucky. because it helps keep your head on a swivel, you know, as far as wasn't twiddling my thumbs. And I know other artists, it would be a lot harder. I was also really lucky to have my partner here in Australia. She's from Portugal. And so like there's things that I just had a really lucky situation because I didn't have to deal with as much restlessness, you know.
Yeah.
And we had a lot of waves. Being really honest, we had a lot of really good waves this last season. And so we had so much surfing going on that helps a lot lift, you know, the spirits. So as far as for a lot of people, specifically on the East Coast, kind of like there was so much surfing being done that a lot of people were taking like holidays and going surfing, which is shocking, but a little bit funny in hindsight.
Yeah, I love that. I'm not a very good surfer myself. I'm a skateboarder. My friend taught me how to surf like years ago. I can catch a wave every now and then, but I'm not very good at it. I'm good enough to look like I'm a surfer, but not good enough to actually like catch those massive waves. I'm jealous if you can do that. One thing I'm curious about, if you don't mind me kind of picking your brain on it a little bit, because you are right. I do think you're the way you described yourself earlier. You mentioned that you're a surfer and your music reflects this positive vibe, very like laid back, and everything's going to be okay, which is what I love about your music. And then you, in turn, as I'm getting to know you, you are a very like go-getter type of person, which I think when someone thinks of someone with your like when they look at you, I would imagine
Absolutely.
most people would be like, he's just chill, he just wants to hang out, which I feel like you can. What I'm saying is I feel like you can do both incredibly well. So how do you know what to focus on, and have you always been that way, or did you learn to become that, to like be laid back in public, but then like behind everything you're just like boom 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 boom, if that makes sense?
I am naturally a bit of like a go-getter. I've always been interested in business. That's why I was interested in remaining independent. We have remained independent and only released my music independently. I am interested in both, you know, like I do get a lot out of my time in nature, and I do get a lot out of my meditation and yoga and ice baths and everything else. Like I do get out. It's so important for me, and that's where you probably see in my music that it is reflecting things that are important to me in the way of I love working hard and being kind of blue collar, and us being an independent team and earning what we've done. You know, I love that.
Yeah.
And I love being involved in the business side of things, in certain side of business things. But for my sort of personality, like I know when I'm not getting that downtime that the music's not there, you know? So it's really important. It's an important part of who I am. And it just makes you feel good, you know? So, but as far as I think I'm definitely not I've got my friends who are laid back, surfy, skaters or surf musicians and stuff. I've got those crew, and it's certainly and that's a part of who I am, but there's another whole side to me as well. But it's cool because it's also facilitated a lot, you know. It's just about kind of knowing where your strengths and weaknesses are. And I could be like, I feel like now I'm continuing to learn that balance. And if I don't get that time, like if I don't get that personal time where I kind of settle, and the stuff that I've really enjoyed, and also the surfing, for example, led me to new places. The surfing is the reason why I went to play shows in little towns that nobody else would go play shows. And that in turn brought my music to people who really connected with me. And so, yeah, Land and Sea, like one of the records I put out, Land and Sea, you just need the balance, you know?
Yeah, that earth and that water. There's a lot of things that you're saying that really resonates with me, which I'm going to have you one of these days for like at least like an hour or so, because there's so much to unpack about who you are.
Let's do it again.
Let's do it again. And one of the things that I want to try and get across, because they're a big chunk of my audience, they're independent musicians like you who are very much, you know, they're in the grind, so to speak, and hustlers, and they're trying to find their own way of breaking through, right? And some of them succeed, some of them are still in the process of succeeding. That's the way I like to view it. And one of the things I try my best to like show them is how to balance themselves. One of my issues personally with like the way that the the world is now. And this is not like a rant. I'm not perfect by any means, but it's something that I struggled with for a while as a musician. And I feel like you just know it at an instinctual level, is you understand that balance. Like, you are a businessman and you are a musician. You have found a way to like coexist with both. Very similar to how I process things. But for me, it took me like a decade to really like come to terms with it, because for me, being over here, what I would see is constant hustle, hustle, hustle. And the culture is like, if you're not working 100% of the time, you're doing it wrong. And again, I struggled until I finally let go. I started meditating myself too, and I'm a huge meditation advocate now. Point being is, at some point I figured out the balance that worked for me. The recreation, the working hard, and just exploring different avenues. And so what I'm really curious about for you, when I studied your history, you from the very beginning knew you were going to be independent, and you started your own label. You basically did things that most people don't really think about doing. And I'm wondering, did you plan that out? I imagine you kind of just walked into it to some extent, but I'm wondering, like, I guess, how did that come to be? And it's a very broad question, and I'm understanding it as I'm getting to know you. But yeah, that's what I'm wondering.
Man, it's you said something really well about, like, you said something really nice about how being a musician and being a business person. And I think you have to, I think what I'd say to any musician, independent or not, is like, we're just all trying to find what our sweet spot is. And what I mean is, like, I am genuinely interested in certain sides of the business, and some people are not. Some people don't want to be involved. Okay, examples. I don't like being involved in receipts. Like, it's so silly, but I'm saying, like, receipts, I like, if you ask the team, they're probably giggling right now, but like, I'm a shocker, and it's so silly because it's such a simple process, but I'm telling you, it does my head in. I'm just being honest. Like, I'm saying, like, it's like, I'll hoard them for no good reason.
You put them in a box, you just put them under the bed or whatever.
It's not my strong point, okay? I'm not receipts guy. But as far as creative input, and I'm also not, if we talk about marketing, I can give good creative input with marketing. But I know Shelley and I know Kaiser are much more the people who are actually going to see that through and will do a way better job than I can do. I'm getting better at managing things, but I'm not the manager that my sister is. You know, I'm not the accounts and legals guy like my father, who does the accounts and legals for us. Like, and so it's about finding your strengths and where you have genuine interest. As far as, if you want to go out and just be a singer and you don't want to deal with all that and you want to sign the major deal and do that, that's perfectly okay. I think we just have to each define, like, what's important? What am I not willing to give up? And I wasn't really willing to give up my autonomy. I wasn't willing to give up certain key decision-making things. When, for example, when can we put out a song? As far as, we put out songs within 3 weeks of them being recorded because I'd talk with the team, I'd explain my motives as to why, and we could do it. That sort of thing is really important to me. I don't want to go through the whole backlog process of dealing with a major label to have somebody say it's not a right part of the strategy. If I'm just like, I want to put out a song because I think the people need it now. And then my team will listen to that and they'll say, okay, we'll make it happen, or we think we can make it happen here. Or they might say, hey, can we push it to here? So, but having that sort of, I think the word is autonomy, but having that is really important to me. It's not important to everybody. And so for me, I was keen on, I had examples like my older brother, I had examples like my father, who were very entrepreneurial, you know? They're kind of different fields, but very like, do it differently. And so, I was homeschooled till I was 13. I went to senior, graduated, got my marks and everything. Didn't do music at all. Did 2 maths and 2 sciences, and, you know, senior English. Wow. Yeah. Like, was not doing music. 10 years ago, picked up a guitar. And since then it's been this crazy journey. And I think I was living my dream. Like, I remember when I had my little 4-door and I'd quit. I was 19. I'd quit all my other, I didn't work for anybody. I just was somehow going to make enough money to survive out of music. My thought was, if I do 2 more shows a week, it means that I'll be just as broke as working at the coffee shop, but I have more time to surf. That was my math. It was really, and that's where the lifestyler in me, it wasn't the business person in me. It was like the lifestyle was like, You get to surf more. That sounds awesome. Let's go. And I
Love
loved,
that.
and I
That's
loved doing
dope.
music.
Yeah.
And so, but I was when I was living in my old van and driving the coastline, like I had so many moments early on and still do, but I had so many of those moments that like it was no gimmick. Like I just loved the fact that I was living in my van and I was going to all these new places and meeting those new people and playing backyard shows and busking and playing house shows. Like I was living my dream. There's nothing else that mattered. I was just in love with what that was. It wasn't like, oh my goodness, I'm only playing to 20 people. I was like, oh my goodness, like I'm playing to 20 people in a new place. Like I really was like, I was living my dream. And then we built this kind of beautiful grassroots, very community based following that just kept kind of growing and growing and growing around the world. And it got to the point of maybe signing, or well, we're very close to signing some deals with other labels. And my dad and my sister and I kind of sat down and were like, but are we sure we can't do this independently? Like, are we sure? Why not? And that was the kind of fork in the road. And was such a critical decision. It kind of gives me little shivers actually thinking about the fact we could have gone another way, because it makes so much sense being on this independent road, for the last 3 years now. Independent record label, starting that up. And
right.
Not only do I think it hasn't hindered my career, I think it's only benefited my career. Like I don't think anyone else could have done a better job. So
yeah, kudos to your
my
family.
Team. Yeah,
I gotta hand it to your family. Your family's incredibly supportive. Not only were they like the right team, sounds like they were perfectly matched for what you were trying to do. But that support that you received should definitely not go, unnoticed. You know what I mean? Because that's everything. Especially when you have people around you, whether they're family, but if they're close to you, specifically if they're close to you, and they just give you that helping hand. To me, that means everything. It's hard to find, and so I really got to tip my hat to your family. What are their names, if I can know? Like your dad, your brother, your sister?
So on the team currently we have Tim, who's my dad, and he's on the kind of accounts and legals. We have Annika, who kind of oversees, my older sister. She kind of oversees the whole business, I'd say. Then we have Kaiser, who's like the full-time manager of the business. She's my auntie. Then we have Shelley on marketing. We're diversifying. She's not family, but she basically is now. She's on marketing. We then have Ria, my other auntie, who's on graphics and design. And then we have my younger brother, Rourke, who's kind of helps me with the actual live stage side of things and stage management, but it's also kind of helping all of us in the office at the same time as well. So yeah, that's the whole team who make it all possible.
I love it. I always like to give credit where credit is due. And I think they deserve a huge round of applause for the support they give you, and to you as well, my man. And like I told you earlier, we really need to have some time where we can just sit down and just talk about everything. Cause like surfing, meditation, all that stuff, I think it's so awesome. But I want to save some time to talk about your album and then like talk about some of the stuff you've got planned. So why don't you like walk me through a little bit, some of the new music that you've got coming out? I know it's around the corner and you're very excited for a lot of it. So I'd like to know more about what inspired you, like specifics of what inspired you to write that music, and maybe what you want your fans to get out of it.
So just around the corner, 10 days away, which is crazy. We are going to start Searching for Freedom, which is this album, this little journey we've been on. Everyone's probably been on for quite a while. Humanity's been on it for a little while. And this album's just another little puzzle piece. It's something we started working on 14 or 15 months ago, which is crazy because I've never spent this amount of time working on a record ever.
Wow.
Yeah. And so it's a 12-track record. Some listeners who are familiar with my music, I think there's been 4 singles out so far. The first one was Together, which was the first song from the album that kind of immediately shaped this folky but also roots feel to what would become an album, a collection of songs. And it was this song that was, like I described earlier, felt like I needed to go out to the people. We helped raise some money for the fires that were going on at the time. In Australia, we had these big fires at that time.
Yeah, and we heard about that. That was crazy.
Yeah, it was freaky. And so I wrote the song we recorded and released it within a matter of weeks. And then after that, I think my next song was probably Don't Get Caught Up. That was around like April, was it June, something like that. And then since then, we've had Heartbeat and Letting Go. So those are the 4 singles. Obviously 10 days away, people have 8 new tracks to hear, which is going to be really cool. Massive process, man. Searching for Freedom as an album has been really cool because opposed to having all the songs and going in and writing them, recording them, in a studio for 2 weeks, it was like I kind of had songs. I had this record. And then what happened is I was writing songs along the way because I was in studio 2 or 3 days a week, basically for 3 seasons. And so, yeah. And so, but it was really cool because it wasn't far from where I live. Really good people, great studio with this beautiful view of like along the side of like basically along the side of a mountain. And so it was like a beautiful place, very like kind of safe, healing place kind of thing where like you just put aside the rest of the world and go there. And I'd be working on songs and then like would write a new song and that'd be the next song we record. So the album kind of shaped itself as probably like four or 5 tracks I didn't plan that were going to be on the album that I wrote during the album process, which was very different for me. Usually it's I have the songs, go record them, work on them, done, whereas this was like, over 3 seasons, I think it was basically over autumn, winter and spring kind of thing.
Did you plan that or did it just happen? Like as you were going along with it, you were like, I don't know, I feel like this one needs time to simmer.
Fully. That's like, it just happened because I was in studio a bit and then tours got cancelled and then we were just booking. It kind of just happened. There was an intention to take time on the record because we could, which we haven't done before. And I think the massive benefit out of that was that the sound of the record, treatments to the song and the overall sonic picture formed after recording all the songs. And there's tricks and things that we learned and sonic treatments that we only learned by the last couple of recordings that we could go apply to the work of the last 6 months. So it's shaped entirely a very unique record that just couldn't have been the same if it just would be a totally different record.
Yeah.
I don't even think it'd be called Searching for Freedom. I think it'd probably be something else,
Yeah. I mean, you're just reflecting what you're feeling, basically, because of this whole entire environment. Do you think that once this is over, hopefully sooner than later, you'll go back to how you normally are, just basically just write, release, write, release, write, release? Or what do you think? Has this new process made you fall in love with the slower process? I don't know.
It certainly has. I think there's a happy medium. This was appropriate because of the time and the volatility of like plan making was impossible.
Yeah.
I think also by the time we got to the end, like it's a long process, and I think that we just had the time. We could afford the time, and so we'll see in the future. I imagine a happy medium. I would like maybe to, oh man, it's so hard to say because I love the record because the record just wouldn't be the same without it, Yeah. I don't think recording like what I wouldn't want to do again. In the past, I used to go in and do like 12-hour days in studio. And I will do that if I have to, but I don't like doing that because I don't think you get the heart of songs out of that.
Yeah.
And I didn't in this record, if something wasn't clicking, I wouldn't go and do 16 takes. If it wasn't clicking in 3 takes, I'd take a break. If there was really good surf, sometimes I come in late, that's a luxurious position to be in that I haven't always been in financially or time-wise, but it shaped such genuine feeling for the record,
Yeah.
It shaped a lot of emotion.
Yeah. I love it. And I feel like one thing I love about you, Ziggy, that I've picked up in just a short amount of time, which I really want to do my best to nail in, because anytime I meet somebody who I feel like is a good example of just good music, happiness, all of it. I always do my best to try and just like push who they are because that's what fascinates me too. And I feel like right now with the way everything is, and maybe applies to all the time. Who knows? But my point is, I do feel like as creatives and musicians, there's always going to be this push and pull on how to be. And I know I mentioned this earlier, but talking to you has taught me and it reminded me of that beauty of just really just trusting what it is that you want. At the end of the day, if you were to pull everything away, all the curtains away, all the BS of life, I think most of us know exactly how we would be living our lives if we could, and I think a lot of the time we try to imagine the humongous, spectacular, glamorous things that we see, which that does not mean we can't get that. What I'm getting at its core, I feel like most of us know exactly what we would need to be perfectly happy. And when I hear about your life, you went after those things first, which explains why you're currently why you are where you're currently at. And that's what I love. You're grateful. You're a very good musician. And I think it makes sense why you're succeeding. And that's why I want to make sure that I nail that in, that you are a very good person. If someone's out in my audience wants to like learn from someone's lifestyle, I definitely recommend this guy. Ziggy, you're definitely on it, man.
I think, thank you so much. And like like we're working, me and Joe talk about it all the time. Like we're working, it comes with putting in the intention or the hours and the time. And what I mean is that, we do our meditation, or we're doing our yoga, or we're doing our, ice baths, which I'm sure you're probably into.
I haven't tried them yet. They've been telling me and I got to do it. I know. It's on my list of things to do, man.
Yeah.
Jesus.
But there's that. So I think that, you definitely got to, as in like music, it's also putting in the work. I think also with putting in the work doesn't sound right for those sort of things that are about like pursuit of happiness, but like you have to, it's not an accident, and you do have to give yourself the best chance, and that's what we are, or I'm trying to, at least I can say I'm trying to do, is to give myself the best chance, because certainly, like you pointed out, it's just about us continuing to strip away the things that are of no benefit, whether that be thought patterns, whether that be habits, whether that be trying to just strip those away to give yourself the best chance to see and experience life exactly as it is, because it's when we do that, when you can just see things how they are, then it's easy to make decisions. And we are mostly entirely responsible for our like confusion in that. And when I am feeling confused about it, which I still do, that's most of the time my filter, and so and through music and through some of these things, and music, what I'd say is really interesting for me personally is that music, and I've said this to my partner and to friends and family, is that my approach to music, for example, with how I was like, well, I'm going to go do this regardless of what the industry says I should do. I'm going to go do this because it's right for me. Music's taught me that kind of like trust and priority, it's not something, it's something I wish carried over all the time to all other parts of my life. But that's why music keeps teaching me, something, because there was a lot of decisions I look back and laugh that I made. That's, example, I went and played my shows despite being festival season. I went and played my shows in Australia in different places. And if you talk to someone in the industry, they would have said, what are you doing? Like, no one's going to come to your show. And my view was, if anyone comes to my show, it's because they're a real part of, like, they're a real fan. They're a real part of who I am and my music is, because they do have to make a choice between that festival that day and coming to my show. And a lot of people made a choice to come to the show, and they became very...
That's cool, man.
So as far as those decisions that I made that were probably a bit out of the box, that were driven by like things that were just right for me, like you said, that trust. And we just got to keep... I'm super interested in continuing to just strip things away that just aren't good for me. Music's certainly not one of them, though. Music I'll keep for a long time because it's teaching me a lot of things.
Yeah, I love it, man. And you said a lot of things that I think hit everything right on the mark, because I do feel like, it also falls in line with, like doing things outside of the box. Maybe sometimes we do need to follow, not the rules, but there are certain strategies that have proven to work time and time again. But I do feel like most of us have those moments where we can like think outside the box because we just feel it. And I do feel like there needs to be a trust to like just go for it. And I think you're a great example for that. My man Ziggy, dude.
truly, like, to think, I really believe, and I say this to friends who are up and coming, like, I really believe that like somebody listening right now might have, probably has the best way to approach their best chance at success. I really think
Yeah.
that's the case. I think there is people up and coming who will do things in a more clever, perhaps even more clever and efficient way for them. Like, I really think that when you get told in the music industry, if someone tells you in the music industry that they know everything, they're not the person to work with. Because if someone's really good in the music industry, they'll be like, well, things are always changing and we're trying to do our best. You know, that's the person to work with, because frankly, like, this industry, particularly through last year, has continued to change immensely. And even we are constantly here as a team adapting on how to move with the times, you know? So like, so shout out to anybody who's, like you said, on the way to success, you know, and keep believing in yourself and your ability to be able to know the best way to, like you pointing out, to things that make you happy. Because I've been on stage at times in my life where I wasn't making priority of things that personally mattered, and it meant nothing because my personal base or energy just wasn't there. And then you just feel guilty for not being able to provide that to the people who've come to your show. So I really think it's important to keep nourishing the stuff off stage and outside of your music career, because I think that's, for me, what gives to my music career. So if I don't have that, then I don't have anything to give to people, you know?
Yeah. I mean, a lot of musicians are busy taking care of their bodies. You need to take care of your mind too. You know, that's my opinion too, you know? But yeah, man, Ziggy, you hit everything right on the mark. I love the music that you're doing. I love where you're headed. I think we're hitting the 45-minute mark. So I think this might be a good opportunity to kind of end it here. And I just want to say thank you for your time. I know that you are on the road to even bigger things. You've already achieved a lot just with you, your family, your team, by trusting your instincts. And that, to me, is the takeaway of this conversation and your whole career as a whole. Who knows where you're going to go next? But the point is, you trusted in you. And that's why you're here now. And I love that. And I can't wait to share that with everybody.
Thanks so much, man. And yeah, we've always said on stage, you know, like I've said on stage, I feel that that I do owe it to, there's things that I do that maybe no one else can do within this team. But like, for example, the team makes these things come to life. I'll bring like the idea and they bring it to life, you know? And so that I owe a lot to. And then even we could do all these things as a team, and if nobody listens to the music and if nobody decides to buy a ticket and come to the show, then like none of it can happen. So then we ultimately owe it, I think, to the people who are making it possible. You know, people like, also you're bringing me to new people. Like, there's a lot of people even on the bloody West Coast in California who have no idea about my music, and you're bringing me over there, you know, through this. So like, then we're stoked. Like, I'm stoked, and let's do it again. Let's do it again and dive even deeper. So a good excuse to do it again.
Yes, there's so much I want to ask you, but I definitely want to respect your time. I know how hard press days can be, so I'm definitely going to let you go. You've got lots of things to do. I do want to say thank you for being on the show.